Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I know. You've been waiting all week for this. Before I introduce you to our guests, what do I say? Co-hosts, guests, get the hell out of here. Here's a quote. Here's a series of quotes, actually, I picked just for this episode based on a wonderful meal the other night. Quote, what was lost will soon be found. P.F. Chang's fortune cookie. Quote, you will soon be recognized for your unique talents. P.F. Chang's fortune cookie. Quote, the day is near when you share your talent with the world. P.F. Chang's fortune cookie. Lastly, luck will follow you in the coming year. P.F. Chang's
Huh.
fortune cookie. If you don't know our co-hosts, Andrew Berman and Paul Lucido, I've been blessed with their support, even at this elongated introduction, complimenting my self-aggrandizement, a little bit of narcissism today with these fortune cookies. Dear friends of the Culture Matters podcast, next time I want you guys to introduce the quote. Um, Maybe that's something we can institute in the future. They have been great friends for many years, done business together, and created value for the industry that they're in. They have been moral supports of me, like almost family, as I've gone on this journey of 30 days of thought. And I just realized this introduction has almost started to become a liturgy. They are alive, and they're two amazing people. So thanks for coming back to the Culture Matters podcast. And at this point, we do this so often. It's not like you're back. You never left. So thanks for being co-hosts of the 30 Days of Thought and friends. And today we're going to talk about accepting different. Oh, maybe this is why I'm going on and on about this without awareness. Accepting different socks. Excerpt on page 37 and 38 is the topic for today. So, without further ado, Paul Lucido and Andrew Berman.
Good to be here, Jay. Always.
Good to be here. Howdy, y'all. So I'm looking forward to going to get some lettuce wraps so I can be inspired by more great wisdom from the great P.F. Chang's.
What are the odds that all the cookies would be around this theme? I've held on to these. Thoughts, Paul?
Well, first of all, speaking to your fortunes, which my wife thinks I'm a little odd this way, I have a whole cup, probably a couple cups in different little compartments that I save fortunes for like a long, long time.
Wow.
So if I was just thinking, if I can aggregate all those, I could probably write a book on fortunes. I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, no, but joking. I know I'm kidding, but
You should. I hope you
seriously,
do.
I really do. I really do save them. It's kind of a funny thing. People can call you superstitious or whatnot. I mean, but there are from time to time really good sayings in there. Really good analogies. Sometimes you get the one that says, "You're a good person." It's like, oh, thanks.
Between the sheets.
It's a little generic. Have you ever gotten a fortune that has no fortune on it? Literally, it's blank. I've had that happen. It's kind of weird. So anyway, so you guys want to kick this bad boy off with accepting? What's our excerpt today?
Accepting
Accepting
different
different
socks.
socks.
Okay. So who wants to read off the little analogy at the back? Maybe
Paul.
Andrew or Jay, huh?
Yeah, Paul, it sounds like you're volunteering. Which one?
Uh,
All right, I'll read it. Give me a second here, get my eyes on. So this is at the end of every chapter, there's a little sort of final quote. Our uses are abundant no matter how we appear, and considering our generic comparison, we each have brilliance within us, accepting different socks. Now, as
Genetic comparison. Genetic.
what it, oh, it is genetic. You're right. What did I say? Generic comparison? I just totally
Still
biffed
on
that up.
theme though. Still on theme.
Yeah, so okay, so obviously let's get into this. I mean, this is about accepting differences in others that are different from ourselves, right? We have our ways, set in our ways, a way of living, a way of observing the world, um, the way we dress, the way we talk, the way we walk, the way we interact with people from a day-to-day basis. But the other piece of this is recognizing that there are differences in other people, um, different from us, the way we might, think something through, the way we might see something. I mean, a perfect example was last night. I remember we were having a discussion. I don't know why this popped in my mind, but it's an example where my daughter-in-law and my wife were talking about dogs, and they're hinting around about getting a dog. I know they're planting that seed, and we started talking about it, and I was immediately feeling myself going, you know what, I'm past the dog owner sort of time and chapter in my life. I've done dogs. We got cats that like to come and visit us. They're just feral, and they love hanging at our home because of the trees and all the stuff. And I'm drifting. The point was they started to talk, and one said, "Yeah, I like dogs with the long pointed snouts," and the other one was, "No, I kind of like the dogs that have a little more of the flat nose, like a bulldog or that." And then it was going back and forth, but they tend to make a lot of nasally sounds, and they sound like they always have a cold. And I was just sitting back observing and listening to the fact that they were both making it clear that no, that's not the kind of dog I really like. And right there is a demonstration of going, okay, well, you know what? I get it. Respectfully, you don't like this dog. I like this type of dog. And just coming to a point to say, hey, we respectfully disagree, agree to disagree, or however you want to say it. But for some reason that popped in my head because I was sitting there. The different sock that I was trying to accept was the reality that, holy smokes, I might have a dog in my life now. I might get outnumbered. I get outnumbered here, and they'll cast me aside and say, "We're getting a dog," and I'm like, "Really? My first inkling was, who's taking care of the dog? Are you going to be taking care of the dog? Because I'm not taking care of the dog anyway."
Well,
I
that's
was
a
I
really
was trying to
good.
navigate accepting those different socks in that moment.
And just so you
I
know,
love that.
I'm putting money on it that this becomes Paul's best friend. Like, yeah, like I'm just, like you try the way you're trying to resist it, and it's gonna come in. Hopefully it's a long, like one of the like. Now, just out of curiosity, do you want flat face or do you want like the long snout?
So the last dog I had was like an American pit bull. Um, really beautiful dog, not a big, huge, muscular one. He had more of a snout on him, but blocky. Darla wants, if my wife likes the English bulldogs. She thinks they're really cute.
They're adorable.
Yeah, but they're always, their tongue is always hanging out and they're drooling all over. But you're right, Andrew. I don't want to make this about dogs. This is more
No,
about
this
the
is
idea.
really good.
Well, it's a real life situation. So, you know,
You're
it's one
embracing
thing to,
it. You're
it's one.
embracing it. You are embracing these different socks.
So let me give you another sock. So the other sock is, as you guys
Sock it
know,
to me.
this is new. In the last 2 months, we have been coalescing with my son and my daughter-in-law. We have a home, thank God, that can accommodate. So I've got a 3.5-year-old, who's getting
Well, thank
his
you and
way.
Darla. I mean, it's not God actually put you on the planet. You guys work your butt off and maintain the beautiful home. So sorry.
We do. And so the new change is now we're all together, and there are lifestyle differences, and there's obviously, there are all kinds of things. There's a child that wakes up, at 5:30 a.m. every morning, and he's just full of life. Sometimes he comes into our bedroom, knocks on the door, and he wants to see his grandma and grandpa, and it's great. I got to tell you,
That's
this
Wow.
is all
great.
very new for me. This is all very new for me. So to our audiences, yes, I'm accepting different socks.
I there. So my daughters at some point, like they were into like socks called like Little Miss Mismatch socks.
Oh
It
yeah.
was all about different socks. Like, and so not only actually was is it about embracing it, but is actually highlighting and seeing the great value in actually having, different something different than what you have. And this is the joy of life is finding actually things that are different from what you're used to, different from your way of thinking, and different from what might be normal to you. So I think this is the like accepting different socks, is the key to happiness and the key to to find meaning in life, beyond just what you're doing on a daily basis.
Well said, sir. I agree. I agree with that. I mean, look, as you read through this analogy, this that Jay wrote, this abstract, at the end of the day, the beauty in it is really is no different than all three of us, right? We're different people. We're finding mutual ground, but we're bringing a little bit of our own flavor to it. And the great thing is we're accepting of one another too. A lot of what we do has less discourse and it's more conciliatory conversation, which is good. I mean, that's a good thing. But but isn't that the fruit of life? Is kind of where you were going, Andrew. I mean, wouldn't the world be a very, very uninteresting place if there weren't different people? And you didn't have the, as some like to say, the compare and contrast. If without contrast, you have nothing to gauge really, other than if everything was absolutely the same, then it is back to how good of the same, who is the best at doing the same thing. And then you're still looking for ways to create separation, finding ways to create a little bit of a difference between one another. So anyway, I think I feel like it's very evident and very obvious to me. What are your thoughts, Jay?
Well, could there be consciousness without contrast?
Well, I don't, let me think about that. Could there be consciousness without contrast? Meaning, so let's break that down. Let, that's a great question. What would, so if I had consciousness, I'm aware, but there's no contrast, then are you saying it's just kind of like all is one? I'm one with all. I have no.
I don't know. I'm just that's a question that arises is, like what makes us human? If we were all the same, like same
Yeah.
thoughts, same behaviors, same, then well, then we're not maybe where's our humanity? What is what are the elements that make us human? It's the in between, the differences, the in between. Um, I did. It's not a preordained question. I just thought of it as you were elucidating, you guys.
Well,
I
I mean,
liked what
and,
because you
and
said something about contrast, Paul,
yeah.
and it's without. Yeah, you said without difference there would be no. Oh no, yeah, and that led me to think like without differences.
we wouldn't be curious. We wouldn't, like so.
Perfectly
And
said.
if we're not curious, you can't be conscious unless you're curious. So I think, that like you need that difference. And I think for a lot of people, seeing something different makes you uncomfortable. Like, if you have one black sock on, one brown sock on, you're a little uncomfortable. Or you see, someone actually that has one brown sock on or one black sock on, it might make you uncomfortable when really, finding actually being curious about it and saying, "Hey, that's pretty cool. What do you got going on there?" This is what makes us conscious of, I guess, of ourselves, of other things out there, and other ways of other viewpoints.
I have a scenario to pose based on Paul's analogy, Laura. Like this is the dog, right? By the way, you could write an excerpt accepting different dogs. But I find that interesting that in that example, one party could be arguing for X dog. Like, right, there's a dichotomy, X versus Y. I like this, I don't like that. I like this, I don't like that. And then you have a third party, I don't even want any of it.
Hmm.
And right, so now that it's an interesting, there's the contrast of I like this versus I like that, and then there's the contrast of those contrasts, which is I don't want any. But then you pose the question, who's taking care of it? And how often in life are those that don't want any part of anything the party that ultimately is best suited? Because the contrast of not wanting anything to do with it, it's like the negative is what prepares or actually serves the responsibility to like there's a deep metaphor here.
Yeah.
And yes, no, your kids, your wife did not pay me for this sales pitch. I feel like I'm selling you on your ultimate responsibility of rearing the dog now, but like I'm selling myself like, yeah, this is a good argument. Like I wrote this down for the most responsible. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Sorry, I'm getting lost in my own thoughts here. So we have, and interrupt me at any time because you're not. We have X versus Y, right? One party wants X type of dog, one party wants Y type of dog. So there's a contrast there. There's a dichotomy. Then there's a contrast to that asymmetry of the third party, this case Paul, not even thinking they are want any of it. And then the question was, who's taking care of it? Came from that third party. And of course it's you, because the person least likely to want to do that is most prepared. Because
Hmm.
that negative is what leads to positive. It's like
That's an
it's I don't
interesting.
want to do it. It will become a meaningful thing now. Because yeah, anyway, like there's it's the and this is a metaphor for life. It's like, the there's so many things that we don't want to happen in our culture.
You know,
Like those are the best things for us. It's what's changed and transformed. And there's this thing between entitlement and responsibility. Paul's entitled not to have one anymore, but he has the responsibility.
so you know it's
I'm laughing because I'm like, oh, poor Paul comes on the show now. I'm just like, dude, you gotta get the
you've just
dog.
locked them in. You've so
I'm like locking you in some Cartesian trap here or something, but
Oh my God, the entitlement part
it's
killed me.
it's a
uh,
deep, it's a deep,
He's,
and by the way, this could be, I'm just projecting because like I want a dog and I know I don't want the responsibility.
well, so here's what will probably happen. Let's say in the event it happens. I was going to say the highly unlikely event. My point was to plant the seed to say, have you really thought this thing through? Do you understand what comes with this? I'm still navigating a 3.5-year old and I'm trying to get my sea legs on that one. And it's great. And I've had my own kids. Now you're throwing another layer on. And yeah, you're probably right. The one person that's going to probably have to step up would be me. Um, and that's not to say others wouldn't, but
This is what the person that wants it the least benefits the most, and there's something weird about the
yeah,
human nature. That's kind of my psychological point.
yeah, no, it's a good way of thinking. And I don't necessarily say digress, but go back to something that I felt like Andrew was going with the idea of, you look at one sock is brown and one sock is black, et cetera, et cetera. There's an old saying, and I think your book says it too, but it says it in a different way. The old saying, if I remember correctly, is different strokes for different folks. In fact, I think they even made a sitcom back in the 80s, if I remember right, called Different Strokes or something like that.
what you talk about?
Yeah, exactly. So,
You're talking about Willis, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
I
we're
am
just talking
talking
about Willis.
about
Yeah,
Willis. So, the
yeah.
idea behind it is that I think, Andrew, you were saying there is a discomfort that comes with the idea that we're all different people. But at the same time, that discomfort is normal. I think that is a normal thing. I think that at the end of the day, everybody has what they think is their normal, right? But my normal might be different from yours, different from Jay's, et cetera, et cetera. And what do? We all look for common ground at the end of the day. Where can we share into something that we have mutual understanding? Well, these conversations are a great example of it. But there's still going to be fundamental differences that, as to your point, Andrew, that sometimes can create a little bit of discomfort. But we all know, because we read, to think, write to develop, listen to what is unsaid, and speak to let go, because we do those things. We've educated ourselves to understand that discomfort brings change. And more importantly, it brings growth. And so I think what's great about the compare and contrast, or the contrast, is it fosters growth. We become better for it over time. We've learned to accept it. How about this? We've learned to understand it. I see where you're coming from. You know what? Now I understand. Now I'm on board. Now why do we do what we do? Why is Jay attending Peterson's Academy? Because he's trying to learn and to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. There are probably topics and different things he's going to learn about that he's going to go, whoa, this goes a little bit against what I thought I knew. So I feel like the beautiful thing in life is, and I think your book, I think it was in the excerpt there, something about our need to want to not necessarily impose our will on other people, but our need to try to get people to understand where we are coming from. That's what I got out of that excerpt. And correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I missed it.
Here's on page 38, it says our sense. Well, let me at the end of 37. Different socks for different folks are not the norm, but abnormal, that we tend to hate with fear, anger, and the desire to change. Our flame is unknown to us, that the entire matchbox we have may all burn out, igniting every flame while devastating all those around us, unchangeable. I'm sorry. While devastating all those around us, causing unchangeable catastrophe. This is all due to the following misperception of another's different socks. Our sense of possession over what socks are the right pair and proper to wear. Like the possession, or that's what the possession, the projection, the implicit bias. This is the way. Schopenhauer. I have this painting in the when you walk in the house, like a portrait rather. It's like every man confuses it'd be nice if I knew the damn painting that's in the front of the house, but confuses the I can't remember. I'm sorry. It was like confuses the vision. Their own confuses the vision of the world for their own field of vision. Every man misunderstands the vision of the world. Limits its limits. Every
Okay.
man limits their vision of the world due to their own limits of understanding. Like our vision of, or our understanding of the world is limited by our own field of vision. Every man's vision of the world is limited by their own field of vision. Yeah, that's it. Limited by their own. It's glad this is live. Limited by their own field of vision. We every man takes the limits of the world for the limits of their own field of vision. That's the quote.
Well, think about it. We all wear, we view the world through whatever lenses, we've talked about this before, whatever lens we're wearing, right? And there was I remember in one of your chapters, it was centric to you being the main character in your own movie kind of thing, and everybody else is a background character, right? This is what this made me think of for some reason, because the idea is that, it, you view the world the way you view the world, but it is fair to say that you're also influenced by the stimuli, the cause and effect of your day-to-day interactions also could change the perceptions of how you see things. It's a possibility because you might, I go back to the same thing. You're focusing on one thing, you have a certain way of thinking. We've talked about you could be stubborn and you just are stuck in your ways and you're just unwilling to acquiesce to anything. That's fine. We admire you for your principles and your faith and etc. But the reality is life is always presenting you facts and literally information that literally could say, hey, you know what? We've revealed there's some other elements here that say otherwise. And to me, that I think is the beautiful thing again about life. The longer you live, the more you see this. When you're a kid, I watch my grandson, for example, not to bring him into the fray, but he is to Andrew said it earlier, he is so curious. He won't play with his toys. He wants to flip every switch in the house, hit every door stop, close every door, look underneath and see how things are working. He's constantly got his head into things. And that could be signs of other things too as he grows. We'll have to figure that out. But the I sit back and my wife we sit back and go, wow, look at how curious he is. Everything is new and
Hmm.
interesting, right? And then as time goes, he's going to learn more and more and more, and that's going to develop to be something bigger. And who knows, maybe that curiosity will just carry through his whole life. I hope to God it does, because I think curiosity is one of the fruits of life. And I
Hmm.
believe that's where Andrew was trying to go earlier. What would
Yeah.
life be without being curious?
Yeah.
And I know I digressed, and I apologize, but
No, that
I
was
just
good.
Yeah, no, that's 100%. And without being curious, you're not going to be conscious of other people. You're not going to grow and accept new ways of thinking.
mhm.
Um, I mean, and I can't help but like thinking of like um how like there's a potential, and once you accept that new way of thinking, it could change your life. Being open to things, being able to accept that things are not just the way you think they should be. Really can actually make you a better person. Cause create harmony in the world. Because the other thing is, by accepting someone's different socks, maybe actually that other person is more willing to accept your socks.
Perfectly.
But by having that mentality of like, I am going to accept everyone's socks. I don't care if you're a mismatch or if you got one, if you're weird, wacky socks. I'm gonna accept your socks, and will make you more likely to accept my socks. And maybe you find out that my socks are the way to that you want to wear your socks.
But here's the real question: who washes the socks?
Paul. I don't know who washes the socks. That's a very deep question. That's because I think it was Ayn Rand that said, we have to live with the consequences of our philosophy.
Interesting.
Like every philosophy has consequences. We can philosophize around these platitudes every Saturday, but we're living out our philosophies in our lives, in the world. The ones we've conceptualized, the ones we haven't, that they're behavioral, that our partners and our spouses and our children and our enemies they might have closer acuity on. So it's a deep question, who washes the socks? I want to ask you guys this. I gotta write that down. Who washes the socks? Was that a Christian metaphor? Like, didn't Jesus wash feet or something? Or is that
I think you're, yeah, and
Whoa,
I was,
Paul. I mean, the theologian.
yeah, well, that did not cross my mind until you said that now, but I think there was, yeah, there's some kind of an anointing process that goes on, but I'm the worst guy for that. That might be an interesting thing for us to start tearing into if we were interested, if it would work, would be to, because I know that's what Jordan Peterson is big on, right?
I've
Isn't
been
he?
reading that new book, like We Who Wrestle with God. By the way, interesting tidbit. They were calling the new tour that tour, the We Who Wrestle with God tour, and they changed the title to A Night to Change Your Life. I don't know, like factually, I don't have any contacts there, like, but I wonder if they were getting less people showing up because it had the G word in it. But
Well,
he has been exploring that concept for some time, and the new book speaks to that. It's a very powerful exploration. We who wrestle with God, but I know it's an aside. But yeah, what do you think on that?
well, no, because this is interesting. I mean, we could go down another little rabbit hole here, but there are a lot of books that are written by physicists. For example, Michio Kaku wrote a book,
Yeah.
and I don't. It literally it's in my bookcase, and it escapes me the title, but it has to do with God versus obviously the universe. There's always this the creationists versus the Darwinian type thinking, for example. But in this instant, there's another book, and I haven't gotten through it yet. I think it's called Why God Won't Go Away. And let's be real, we're all still talking about it now. We haven't been on this planet for very long. When you stop and think about it, we've only been here for a very, very short time. But God is one of those topics that is just very innate in all of us. It's very intrinsic. Whether you believe in Christianity, Judaism, whether you are from the what's the word I want to say, Eastern philosophy, Buddhism, Hinduism, and all that, regardless of what your belief system might actually be, everything still has some deity of some kind, right?
Yeah, some single source creator.
Some single source, whether they created everything and then just said, let it run on its own, or they created everything and then they intervene. That's the other type of thinking. It's theistic versus deity versus a theistic God. I got to look that up. I need to do my homework to get my facts right. But the point is, yeah, the God, and then you've got the theoretical physics
But
that discovered the Higgs boson, and they were calling it the God particle, right? Because they found by smashing atoms together, there was another particle that came out of these atoms being smashed together called the Higgs boson, as a boson. And that's interesting. We could discuss that at another time, and I could brush up a little bit and at least help with the narrative. But anyway, point is, I'm trying to think of where my point was going with this. You brought up. You're gonna have to reel me back in, Jay. You
no, but
brought
this
up.
is you just led me to an idea that I think I haven't given. So one thing that we haven't done with 30 Days of Thought, like that's how I want to say. I wrote it down. If you give people something to believe in, like you serve it up on a platter, and the effort's tinged with enough revenge, effort, energy, enthusiasm, you can get a following pretty quick and it'll grow. But if you give people a platform to or a process to test their beliefs and to come to their own conclusions,
Mhm.
you won't only not have very many followers. I don't even know how much your own followers would even like you. That's just something that's I like that this process is about people coming to their own beliefs, not to even through like testing and shaping and
You're talking about this. You're
yeah,
talking
30
about
days of
30
thought.
days of thought. 30 days of thought, in my humble opinion, because I have, and I know I think I did a review. I don't know if I did an actual review of the book. Did I? I got to think about that. But the idea is it is clearly a thought provoking book that plants little seeds throughout and gets you to do what we're doing now. We're starting to contemplate what this is. And to me, it falls very much under the umbrella of philosophy. Um, I do not have a degree in philosophy, so I by no means purport to be a philosopher. But I would say, as an armchair observer and as an enthusiast, which, part of what, I get from watching all these different podcasts, we get it. You're not a physicist, but we want to explain and help you understand as a layperson what we mean by, quantum theory or whatever. Or, you know what? We get it. You're not a theologian. You're not educated. It's not like you went to Oral Roberts University, which, by the way, I have a friend that actually did. He's one of the smartest guys I know. He really is.
He
And
must have you around to make himself feel better about himself then.
so, yeah, well, listen.
If you're going to be self-deprecating, I'm going to call it out. You're a smart guy. You're great, Paul.
Thanks,
Yeah.
brother. I appreciate it. I think it's just over time I've just learned how to think through things. But I have to be honest with you, man. I have a lot of people in my life, including the two gentlemen that are on this podcast now, that I'm fortunate to have in my life that force me to be the better version of myself by listening to their ideas and thoughts. That's what I've learned to be better about is what listening more and learning more. But yeah, over time you just learn how to process thought. I think if you're intelligent, there's smart, but then there's intelligence, right? Being deft and clever and smart is great. It's a great tool to have to navigate life. But being intelligent, having the intelligence to be able to recognize when you need to be a good listener, recognize when to speak, recognize when not to speak, and being able to ingest information and decipher it, I think is really, really important. There are a lot of people that are very, very, very intelligent, yet may not have the soft skills to convey what it is exactly that they learned in a way that you could understand. So thank God, I guess where I'm going for the ambassadors in this world who say, hey, I've done my homework and I'm going to bring this to you in a way that will hopefully make sense. And then you can make a decision. I've done the legwork for you a little bit, you know? So it's an amazing thing how we trust into others. That's why there's so many books. Let's be honest. Everybody now's got a book because they're sharing their thoughts on a subject that they've interpreted. This is my take. This is what I got out of this. This is how I feel about it. Hoping that maybe other people will go, you know what? I feel exactly the same way. I'm glad somebody out there sees it the way I see it. Now it's going back to different socks again. Now it's going back to, um, oh, we have the same socks in this case. You know what I mean? Isn't that funny about life, though, how we're always looking to find common ground?
I want to
Well,
speak
why
that
is that? Why is that? Why is that?
identity, meaning,
Comfort.
purpose. I was just reading The Master and His Emissary by Dr. Ian McGilchrist. Had
Hmm.
the amazing honor of having him on the Culture Matters podcast. And in The Master and His Emissary, The Divided Brain and the Making of the Western World, he talked about the data around. We've heard this, you may have heard this sentiment before, that a certain um, economic level, you won't get happier. You might have heard that sentiment before. There's a certain, money doesn't buy happiness is that cliche.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so you get to a certain level. He said, is articulating in one of the chapters the where happiness, e.g., meaning, let's say, over happiness really is a result of the depth and breadth of our social connections.
Interesting.
So that's the retort to your question is, I would say identity, maybe a reorientation around our aim or our goals. Like, we all have doubts
Of course.
about whatever we're working on right now. I have doubts of things I'm working on. You, either of you or anyone listening to this may have doubts of whatever they're working on. Well, of course, because we don't know what the future brings. We just have uh, a degree or degrees of the ability to relate to current events and what project futures. So having these conversations with you guys is a component of the program to have faith, to quell the doubt, the angst, the anxiety that comes with uncertainty.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah. I
it,
hear. I hear you.
and part of that social cohesion, so the depth and the breadth of our social relationships. I want to share something personal here, that I realized reading this thought back, and I want your guys' thoughts on this. So this whole excerpt, right? Accepting different socks. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just this one sentiment. This is now. I was observant of others observing me and critical of their observation as
Mhm.
a result of not yet accepting the fact that I wore different socks, literally and metaphorically. So, like in between the lines here, you know, this excerpt, yeah, our perplexity emanates from the inquisitive, irritable, confused, confounded, indifferent, or upset thoughts combusting simultaneously from an odd sight of the nearby stranger wearing two different stocks. So I want to acknowledge the this excerpt. I think I was observant of others' observation of me and not yet accepting the fact that I wore different socks. And
Hmm.
and that's an awareness from, going through this over the years.
Well, you're opening up quite a thing. Quite a. Let me think about that for a minute. So, and Andrew, please step in anytime if you've got something that you. In fact, Andrew,
Yeah.
what is your take on that, Andrew? I
So
have to
so
think about that.
so you wanted your socks to be accepted, and the way to do that is by accepting other people's socks. But your goal was really like, hey, my socks are weird. My socks are different. Will the world please accept my socks?
Yeah,
So
like
you,
what if the impulse to be accepted is a driving force in inclusivity, compassion,
yeah,
the need for empathy to occur?
yeah.
Well, quite literally, it was anyway, I used to literally wear different socks. I just want everybody to know this. I personally used to wear different socks all the time. Um,
Like
so
intentionally, or you just didn't give a fuck about what if they matched?
Oh, I mean, I like wearing that. Yeah, that was very intentional. I mean, those are great
So is
socks.
that what prompted this? Is that what prompted this chapter? Is that where that came from?
So there's levels to it, right? It's like,
So this is a literal this is a
well,
literal
I want to
chapter.
this is the thing. The interesting thing about 30 Days of Thought is the whole exercise is a literal, it could be there's a psychological, you know, the whole thing is the 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 writer, the writer, the going through the process of, and there's a narrative that's playing out, going through the process of being the mentor, being the mentee, not being an adequate mentor, an inadequate mentee. Like, all of the excerpts are in an order of like, so I wouldn't, that's a blanket. That's partially why it's so easy to say and so necessary to say this is not my book. This is the reader's book. It's a
Mhm.
process of reading to think, uh, writing to develop, speaking to let go. There was no listening at that time, so that wasn't in the book. I figured that out through the podcast that I'm not a good listener by in my nature. Um, even to the fact when Paul said earlier about the writer of the play director, I mean my even that conceptualization of the be the director, the writer, producer of one show movie, that's something I believe the I then benefited from believing to move into action. Like there's a self-orientation in that concept. You're the writer, producer, actor. Of course, that's what someone would have to believe if they're alone, naked, afraid, trying to strive into something that's scary and horrifying, and the victim that wants to be stronger. That, of
Mhm.
course, once you become the victor, well, now you're just an asshole. You're not what are you, the writer, the producer, you're now I'm like, what a schmuck, But contextually, the loser, one that is losing, not a loser, but the one that is losing, it contextually benefits from believing that. Once the losing person that could be called a loser is now a winning person that could be called a winner, they better not believe that shit anymore. They're just an asshole. Who wants to work with that asshole?
That's an interesting point.
So
You
what I'm
know,
saying, this whole book is me being, I'm like looking at it, I'm like, nah, don't agree with that anymore. That's different. That's not how I identify with this. Hey, I used to wear two different socks. Yeah, literally. No, but it's deeper than that. So this, I'll have to listen to this again to get the thoughts clear. But I believe that yes, what Andrew boiled it down really artfully. And like, I want to be accepted, so I have this great pull to help other people be accepted.
mhm.
There's a beauty in that. There's suffering in that. It's good to be aware of that. But I have to accept my different socks. No amount of helping everybody else is going to help me accept myself if I don't recognize that I don't
Mm.
accept myself. And that's pushing me to help so many people accept themselves or be accepting.
Okay,
And
so
that's what I'm struggling with now. I'm breaking through it now. The last year, the last months,
right.
like I don't accept my own damn socks.
So this really, I mean, it's interesting. Like we come into this, and it's about accepting other people's socks. It's completely written wrong. Like the real thing is actually you need to accept your own socks. Fuck everyone else's socks. Your socks are your socks. You are different from everyone else, and that is the beauty of you. That is the beauty of actually of ourselves. You know, it's like it's almost like, I mean, just think about that, because otherwise you're like, my socks are fucking perfect. Everyone else socks a little weird. Like, really, your socks are weird. My socks are the normal ones, and like, but I'll accept your weird socks. That's okay, person.
Maybe we need those people that are like angry about everybody's socks to make sure we don't get too high at our socks.
Well, there's that too. I mean,
We need
Consciousness.
assholes.
That's the
see,
consciousness coming into it.
Yeah,
see, I'm getting a different feeling. Here's what
we're getting momentum. We're getting momentum.
I feel like, so here's what I feel based on your comment. So the book was your way of expressing your thoughts, your feelings, to evoke emotion in others. I think most humans are looking to seek acceptance. Let's just say, for talk's sake, most humans are looking to seek acceptance. They're looking for to form community. They're looking to be, you started a new school, you're the odd kid out, you're hoping that you can get indoctrinated. That's what we do. We bring people in and we shape them along the way. And once you're in, you're like, hey, I'm part of it too. I'm normal. I've been accepted. There's that yearning, that need to be accepted. But you're right. If I go back to what I felt like I was hearing you say is, it all starts with you having self-awareness and recognizing that you might be different and being okay with that. But being okay with that sometimes might require other people to go, that's okay. That's totally cool that you're that way. And so now all of a sudden it gives you, oh, okay, I guess I am okay being different. And why is it? Here's the dichotomy in my mind. We want acceptance, but why, especially in our youth, are we so desperate to be different, to be our own person, to wear our hair a certain way, to color it a certain way, to wear crazy, funky clothes? There's almost more of a push to be, I don't want to be like everybody else. I actually want to stand out and be different. And I want to be so different because I want to give the perception that I don't care, that I'm different and I don't care what anybody really thinks. But do they really not care what everybody thinks? See, that's to me what's interesting, because we so desperately need acceptance. We want to be part of the circle. And then what ends up happening? All the people that dress this way become their own community of being different. Do you ever notice that in cultures and stuff?
Yes.
There's car culture, there's all these different cultures that want to say we're not like everybody else, but it's a we're not like. It's not an I'm not like. It still requires some community, some coalescing, some kind of circle of influence, if you will. So I don't know. I always wonder about that. I mean, we all have style. We all like to have our own style. By the way, I wanted to tell you, I really like this hoodie. You look good, man.
Thanks. Yeah,
It looks great on
Your
you.
hair,
gorgeous.
dude,
Yeah,
your
you're
hair.
rocking it. It looks
Starting to grow the
good.
hair out, you know?
Yeah.
Jay, your hair looks fantastic.
Yeah.
I was actually, I was waiting for the right moment, and I realized we're probably coming up on the end of this. I said, like, let me make sure, since you're complimenting his hoodie, like that fucking hair is fire.
This is timely because I've been having a lot of anxiety
Oh, you
around
guys.
lose. I think on my hair is I'm losing it. So
Hey, listen, don't even bring that conversation up ever again. Uh,
I was literally setting up a hair appointment to go to
Trust me, brother. Let me tell you,
implants.
yeah, I used to have. Wow, I had a head full of hair. When I saw some of my old photographs with my wife, even after I was married, I thought, is that the same person? But anyway, um,
It shows how relative everything is and how gratitude. Sorry, I'm interrupting. Make gratitude or this what relationships. You're like my anchor, right? My anchors. If I'm driving myself nuts about something that I see, it's only an angle of with a certain context. Getting feedback from the community, it's like, Jay, calm down. You don't need to set up a doctor appointment and start, you know, planning how you're going to get hair implants.
You're not there yet, brother. You got a good head of hair. Andrew still has good hair too. I am, considering my age, I do okay. I have good hair days and bad hair days. But anyway, I was going to go back to something you said that I felt was important. I know we're getting toward the end of our time here. Um, the thing that kind of stuck out for me in this discussion was the part where you were observing somebody observing you, and you were not happy with their take. In other words, an, you were observing them and their reaction to what they, I guess, thought of you or observed of you, but you still didn't accept. You were not at a point where you could accept that opinion is a correct opinion of who you are. Did I get that right?
Yeah,
Because
well, and you bring if my observation is that those observing me are not accepting of me,
yeah,
if that's my observation, uh, but the prerequisite to that is I don't accept me. I would argue if I don't accept me, how do I actually differentiate between who accepts me and who doesn't?
good
I could
point.
just project that nobody accepts me ever. And if I don't have the courage to even ask or to embrace my conceived enemy, conceived antagonist, then I'll never be able to vet if they
Mm-hmm.
accept me or not, which just leads me to some solipsistic, self-centered, victim, all-knowing, in control, narcissistic, entitled
Mm-hmm.
child loser.
Yeah, I mean, part of growth,
I'm
part of
not saying
growth.
I'm not saying that's me. Right now, at least, I don't want to. I'm not trying to beat myself up. Speaking more
Yeah,
that we can fall into these things if we have if I have a perception of what somebody thinks of me, but I don't voice it to them. I don't ask them. It's just a perception. I don't know if it's true or not. Right? I could
that's
be thinking
very.
this whole call. Paul and Andrew are thinking this whole time that my hair is falling out. I never ask, and you guys are like, "What the hell are you talking about?" I wanted to say you had a great hair day today.
Well, you know, and I feel like we could table this for another discussion. There's something about where we're going here that's starting to lead me into the self-awareness, being self-aware, which is really, I think there are people that have limited self-awareness. When we talk about the emperor has no clothes, we've met those kind of people in our travels that just, I'm here, I'm who I am. And they just leave everybody else in their wake, where they have no real idea of who they really are. Or maybe they have such a high opinion of themselves, but it's so high, it's blinded them to the reality of who they really are. The general populace goes, and I'll use it, that guy, that guy over there, that guy is an asshole, and he doesn't even know he's an asshole. You know what I'm saying? It's like the I think it's really important to have some sense of self-awareness. It really is, and have enough self-awareness to know when to go, you know what, you need to button your lip and listen, or maybe learn something today and actually humble yourself. We teach people, we say these things: be humble, be grateful. I know them all. And you said earlier, you use the term platitude. It's a great word, because sometimes and Andrew, you and I've had these discussions ourselves, how even social media is just nothing but littered with platitudes. I listen to Gary Vaynerchuk. He comes into my feed because he talks about culture a lot, and that's why the algorithm is bringing him in. But when I really listen to him, part of me goes, wow, you know what? That's really true what you said. The other part of me goes, you're just telling me things that most of us are already aware of, and you found a way to just create a narrative around it. And to me, that makes me wonder how much self-awareness is there, you know? And so at the end of the day, and believe me, I think the guy is obviously a very bright individual. He's super, he's got a lot of influence, but sometimes when I listen to the things he says and I go back 5 years in time, we were talking about those same things ourselves. I think everybody on this call understands what it means to be grateful. I will tell you, I'll use my dad's words here. My dad always said, practice what you preach. And a lot of people like to preach and espouse, but they don't really practice any of it. Okay. They create the perception. Live through your words. If you can do that, I think that makes you that really says something about your character. But if all your life is just to give unsolicited advice to people and you don't take any of your own advice, I don't know. I think that goes back to self-awareness, and that goes back to just maybe a false sense of character, I guess. What was the thing you were talking about in one of your podcasts? It's in 30 Days of Thought. Beware of the false idols.
Yeah, well, those who speak say nothing, or
Yeah, the man who says nothing. Yes.
the
I
man
know
who
I'm
speaks.
digressing a little bit,
No,
but I can't
that's
help
right
it.
on topic. Yeah, that's right on topic. The man who speaks says,
Nothing.
Paul, thanks for the open feedback loop. If you're listening to this podcast, I don't want you to get a life. I want you to listen to this show every day. I want this to be your life. So listen, tune in for I crack myself up.
You're
I
cracking me up.
yeah, just as Kierkegaard said, what if everything in life was a misunderstanding and laughter were really tears? Andrew, Paul, thanks for joining me again to make this Saturday, uh, more capable of coping. And please continue to show. If you're listening to this podcast, uh, please invest in your 30 days of thought. Um, Not only would it benefit me, and if you care about me, you should. This is like the worst sales pitch, right?
So you can make 14 cents.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and that 14 cents matters because, compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world, and we know what to do with it. So, please get on 30 Days of Thought, for your benefit, and I look for and please go listen to our God, how many have we done? At least 15 of these so far.
Yeah, I have a playlist, and I've added it to my Take Five playlists. But we're definitely we've got about I want to say 13 to 15 of these under our belt now that we've been
I think
doing.
that if I had listened to them years ago before, if I was a listener like on the show, and I had listened to the episodes we've done together so far, it, I, you know, I would have I think I would have wrote even better things in the book. So that's how valuable I think these conversations are. Andrew, you want to close us out because clearly I need help today.
um, I was just looking, I'm just gonna tease next week. Getting stuck. That's what we're gonna do next week. See you all next week. Like
Share this with a friend. Share this with an enemy. We will see you next time in the Culture Matters podcast.